Welcome to Helping Hands. This is where we celebrate the people across Australia who make the world a better place. Coming up today,
friendship, trust and community.
the second part of Wesley Mission's community housing work.
When you haven't got that much, there's enough to go around.
We look at what it means to be wealthy, and we invite you to connect at helpinghands.tv. Last week, we saw Wesley Mission's community engagement team working with residents in supported accommodation, building an outdoor garden table, but more importantly, bringing people together. Today, we'll see how all members of the community benefit from working for a common cause.
We're at Miller, Western Sydney. Community engagement is where the tenants come together to engage with each other to build community.
My name's Darren and I work for the Royal Botanic Gardens. We partner with Wesley Mission, they made contact with us. The program that I'm involved in is called Community Greening, and we promote the health benefits of gardening and horticultural therapy.
Well, food is connection. Food is where families come together, where friends come together, and that's where communities start. And it's a much more casual situation to, have the chats that you need to, and you connect over food.
Okay, you ready? You might want a little napkin under that. We're all part of the engagement team, and part of my responsibility is cooking the barbecue. I'm going to cook up around 50 sausages today. They usually come back for seconds, thirds. It all depends how well I cook it. As you can see, that one, it's a little bit too well done, but believe it or not, some people like it like that. What I do at Wesley Mission is property manage. Property is owned by Land and Housing. We also do look after some of the SDA properties for Wesley Mission. Primary role is to maintain, upgrade, and make sure that we do repairs when required. Just basically keep the buildings in good order and in working order. We came across a tender which was being offered by Land and Housing, and we put a submission in. We won at least 3/4 of it. It's all about upgrading the units, and some of those upgrades involve renovations of kitchens, new flooring, new paints, new electrical items. Renovations are important is because our tenants living here, because they live here for quite a while, their kitchens have grown old. This was the best opportunity to do the whole complex in one big hit, especially when we've got the funds behind us. Basically, what it says to our tenants is that we do care, we are listening. We're listening very carefully to understand what they want and what they need.
Onion, please.
Onions.
Thank you.
Okay.
Days like today where we get people together around meal, around food, around company are critical. It's about establishing community and connection with each other, but also with our team, so that we are able to better serve and to empower people to live the life that they deserve, they richly deserve.
So we have lots of properties from Newcastle all over Sydney, and there's very different stories for each person that comes. And nobody is a number, everybody is a person to us, and we care about each of their stories. A lot of people think the only tenants that come to live at Wesley Community Housing have been on drugs or had problems with drinking, but a lot of the guys here have just been through unfortunate circumstances, and it can happen to anyone. You can fall into homelessness. You don't have to have bad choices for things to happen for you to become homeless.
Across the board, I'd say the singles are probably more likely to reach out and say, I'm struggling, whereas I think the families are a bit more head in their sand. We will house anyone from 16 all the way through to 100 if they need housing, and that they can sustain a tenancy with support or without support.
So we're just going to put some mulch on the gardens just to beautify the gardens and tidies it up. So in between what we're doing with the table, maybe a little bit of planting, we'll look at a few areas in the garden that needs sprucing up, and we'll put a bit of mulch around just to tidy it up. We'll just put the last of this on.
Yeah, you throw it down and we'll give me the bag, right?
You know, I work with a lot of people with Wesley Mission, and the thing that really stands out for me are the stories. You know, everyone's got a story. You know, you could write a book, you could write a bestseller.
Easy.
Sometimes I feel as though I've got more from the activity than they have, because just hearing their stories and sharing what they've been through in their life, it's pretty special.
It's been an interesting life, but I won't go into any detail about it.
Give me a chair, George.
It's I'm still affected by what my past was in many ways, but because I've got a stable environment, I'm able to deal with that in what I perceive as a lot of positive ways.
Hands are like rock.
Just about. I think that's got it.
All right, well done. Good job, guys.
Yeah, okay.
Smells great. What can I
Move
say?
on, do we?
Oh yeah, it's better.
There is more to come after the break.
We encourage people to work with us, so we work side by side. So this garden we put in, it was probably 3 months ago, I think.
Yeah.
Well, the first time we put it in, we planted a whole heap of herbs and different annuals, like some lettuce and some spinach and a few other bits and pieces. Pretty much now ready to pick. Yep, beautiful, ready to go.
Right, now we have over here some lettuce. I'm going to take the whole top off then. I'm going to be a bit rough on it today.
We've got some parsley over the back. Maybe we can put some parsley in the
We've got a little bit of parsley
in the wrap.
coming up. It's a luxury that I've never had before in this life, being able to walk outside the door, take about 20 steps and pick a bit of lettuce for lunch. Now there's several different varieties of lettuce in here. You might be able to see some of the difference in them.
Yeah, we've got
Right, that's a lettuce too, as is this.
I got this chili, sorry.
Oh, beauty, man.
Look at that, bro.
Are these yours?
Yeah, the Mexican style.
Oh no, they're hot, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. These chilies were planted about 3 months ago down Ashcroft, Harrison Street.
George loves his chili, so he's the go-to person. Anything about chilies, George knows.
I'm from
And he's
Mexico.
also our taste
I'm
tester.
from Mexico, Mexicano.
Yeah.
So what do they like, George?
They're very hot.
But he loves them hot.
Yeah. I'm tempted.
Yeah. They're hot.
With the garden, caring for that, growing the chilies, sharing that with each other, the sharing of themselves is like an opening up of who they are, and that makes them feel like they trust us to open up and share with what's going on in their lives. Brad's coming with some wonderful things from the garden.
We have some basil.
Basil?
Be very
Oops,
careful
sorry.
of the chili.
Oh, chili. Yeah.
Yes, they're George's.
How hot's this chili?
How hot can anything be? That's how hot that chili is. We got some lettuce, and that's about it. I
Yes.
grabbed a few small leaves of spinach too, which might go nice.
Spinach, that would be nice. We've got a grant for healthy wellbeing for mental health, and part of mental health is eating healthy food so that your mental health can be stable. And we find that people that eat a lot of junk food, their mental health tends to be a little bit more unstable, but tenants that eat a healthy diet and do regular exercise tend to have better mental health. A lot of people have food from different cultures, so it's also nice to show them what we eat here in Australia. We like to do at my home is do ham, slice of cheese. The guys love the red onion here. So we're going to use a little bit of the lettuce from the garden. Part of life skills is learning how to eat healthily. They can help each other. So if somebody's struggling, they're not feeling well, they're sick, then they can make a sandwich or use those life skills to help their neighbour. I think it's important for us to see that every block is different, every person is different. and the way that we help each different block is going to be different from the next.
How many drills you got?
Your one.
We're just putting the slats on this table, ones that they painted this morning. I served my time as a carpenter in Geelong many years ago. Worked all the big projects. Stopped work at about, I was 66, I was still working. And then the labour hire company said, I'll put it right on the end there so you can knock it down. That's it. Hold it there, give me a couple of screws. Just put a screw, a
with your
spacer.
head. With your head.
And I've been doing this for quite some time too, I think. How many years now, George? 5 years. Making up all the planter stands in different places. It's something that everyone can participate in. It's not just one person or whatever. Everyone can come out and do it if they want to. Nobody's left out.
Friendship, trust and community. Since we've been coming to the Miller property, doing barbecues and community engagement, there's been a lot of trust with the clients, each other.
How's that? Oh yeah. Oh, it's got this in it.
We're made for connection. We're made for connection with one another, obviously connection with God as well. And days like today just reinforce that, provide opportunity for that. For people who might find it easy to stay in behind their door, it gives them the reason to come out beyond their door and to connect with others. And I think that's critical for mental health. I think it's critical for well-being. I think it's critical to have that hope for the future.
Most of these guys here live by themselves, and it's really lovely to be able to sit at a table and connect like a family. So that's what I love, bringing the family back to the table and connecting each other in the community with each other.
If you are a helping hand or would like to see a helping hand from your local community featured on this program, visit our website and be in touch. We'd love to hear about the people and organisations across Australia who are making the world a better place.
To find out more about the wonderful work of Wesley Mission and the many other helping hands across Australia, visit our website and follow the links to the Helping Hands directory. Also, follow us on our social channels and let us know about the helping hands in your local community. Welcome back to Helping Hands. This is where we focus on the people who make the world a better place. We are fortunate in Australia to have a social security and healthcare system that ensures we all have access to basic necessities and the ability to live above the international poverty line. We often refer to ourselves as the lucky country, but are we also a wealthy country? The panel joined Laura in the studio today to discuss wealth and what it means to be wealthy.
Thank you so much for joining us. With me on the panel today, we have social researcher Mark McCrindle, we have John Owen, the CEO of Wayside Chapel, and Lisa Ellis from Wesley Community Housing. Thank you all so much for being here. Mark, Australia has a bit of a reputation as being the lucky, the wealthy country. Do we consider ourselves to be a wealthy nation?
We consider ourselves to be pretty egalitarian. You know, the suburbs are the great melting pot, and we like to think of ourselves as average. When you look at the figures, the average household net wealth now exceeds $1 million. Sounds like a lot, millionaires, but that just means that most of that is tied up in the family home. The average person who's heading to retirement has about $100,000 in superannuation. That's got to pay for a longer life post-work. And even the average household income, it's just over $100,000 now, which again sounds like a lot of money, 6 figures there, but normally that's 2 incomes contributing to that. And if it's the average person carrying the average mortgage, about 40% of that annual household income is going just on the interest repayment. So it sounds big, but actually most Australians are just getting by. Not a whole lot of intentions to sort of live large. Australians are just sort of generally middle class and trying to pay the bills and get through these economic times.
So how would you define wealth these days?
Well, it's definitely, when Australians think about it, they're talking about their nest egg, which is largely the family home. That Aussie dream is still alive and well. They want to save up a little bit for retirement, maybe a car or two to get around, and maybe a holiday domestically each year, and maybe an overseas one every few. So that's sort of how Australians live. But particularly since the pandemic, Australians have been reprioritising all of this, and they're saying, you know what, we can probably ease back on work because wealth is a lot more than money. It's about lifestyle, it's about relationships, and it's about really having a life that can leave a legacy and really is meaningful in its existence.
I'm glad you brought up that point because, John, in the work that you do, you work with such a cross-section of people. In your context, how would you define what it means to be wealthy? Is it always about finances as much as all of those other things?
We often run around quite fearful of our bank balance, but Australians are managing to get by, but I'd say they're more struggling to make ends meet at the moment. But we see that there are, people who are, the average amount of savings in someone's bank account right now is about 8 weeks worth. So, these are difficult times, but to use wealth and finance as a narrow measure of what we should be talking about more is well-being. And we have a little saying at Wayside, that the sign of a life falling apart is driven by 2 questions. One is, what's the most you can give me? And what's the most I can get for the least, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have to be sleeping on the streets to be driven by those 2 questions.
So in hardship and poverty then, what does contentment look like if it's not going to be as influenced by the wealth in terms of finance side of things?
I think Australians do complain a bit about the tough times and the cost of living and the rising interest rates, and we're certainly seeing low sentiment, so Australians are a bit concerned, a bit worried, but behavioural change on the back of that, flipping out the known brands for no-frills brands. We've found that the enjoyment of life and in fact some of those priorities have not diminished at all. In fact, some people are saying, hey, we moved out of the big smoke and sort of chasing the dreams to now a bit more of a relaxed lifestyle, and we're actually happier now than we were in the stress of it all back then in the good times. So I think this correlation between wealth and happiness has shown of recent years to actually not exist.
Are there healthy and unhealthy relationships or perspectives then that we can have when it comes to wealth? What would you say, Lisa?
I think when it becomes the driving force of everything we do, pursuing having more and more and more, I think we then lose some of that contentment and that well-being because we're focusing so much on that and missing out on the rest of everything that's going on that we can be a part of.
We don't want to be disingenuous. There is a certain level of income into someone's life where you're no longer worrying about whether you're going to eat or not, whether you're going to pay the bills, and they're real stresses that are happening now, and we're seeing that come out in more family and domestic violence at times. But so we need to have a certain level. Everyone has that right. But beyond those measures, there are so many other ways of measuring our health and well-being, aren't they?
Just on that, John, one way that we know that's the case is around jobs people are taking and earnings, and certainly that job is important, that earnings is important, but we're finding that people aren't crossing the road to get a different job for an extra $5 or $10 or $20. They're crossing the road if they're not finding a great workplace culture, a sense of growth and training, good leadership, and a sense that they're making a difference and having an impact in their role. People, of course, will focus on the money because their survival is at stake. But for most people, they're actually, assuming they can pay most of those bills, they're actually focused on the deeper things of life, and I think that's a good direction.
Absolutely. Well, thank you each for your perspectives. Really appreciate that. And thank you for watching as well.
Head over to our website to see the extended conversation on what it means to be wealthy. The panel share loads more insights online. We'll be back in just a few moments. What do you say it means to be wealthy? Is it the size of your bank balance, or can it be measured by the quality of the people, friendships, and relationships around you? In my life, I have moved in circles with some of the richest people in Australia, and now as a chaplain to the courts, I see some people who would describe themselves as having nothing. The way we define what it means to be wealthy can and often does impact the way we perceive ourselves and our self-worth. I'd like to encourage you to measure the wealth you have in your life by the people around you, the community that you are part of, and the things that bring you joy.
Let us know about the helping hands in your local community at helpinghands.tv. Send a photo or a short video and tell us about your local heroes in 25 words or less.
Thanks for being part of the show today, and special thanks to Laura and the panel for giving us something to think about. I'd like to encourage you to head over to the Helping Hands website and subscribe to our regular mailing list. We'll be in touch once a month with the things we have coming up on the show, and would love to hear from you about some of the positive stories from your local community. See you next week.